anger a lot lately. I have a presentation coming up this week actually on anger expression, so that's also brought it to the forefront. And then last video, I shared that in one of our classes we had a big release where we all just put on tribal music and screamed, and it was awesome. But then in the first year class that I'm TAing, we were talking about anger. So I thought like, hey, let's put on tribal music and scream. And so we did it. And a lot of people got triggered, which totally makes sense, but I wasn't really thinking like, hey, these people are in first and second semester, and so they haven't had as much time at Rhodes, whereas all of us in second year, we've been there 18 months now, and we've just gotten really used to screaming, as well as being around really intense emotion. That's pretty much what you do at Rhodes all the time. So don't worry, nobody was scarred for life, I don't think. We made sure everybody was stable, and we talked about everything and what came up for people afterwards, and it ended up being a really fruitful lesson and discussion for the class as well as for myself. But it just reminded me that anger has got such a bad rep. It scares the crap out of so many people, and rightfully so, because anger can be very, very scary. And it's also just not allowed. A lot of people say like, oh, don't get angry, don't get angry. That's not okay. Even for myself, growing up, we were allowed to be sad. That was okay. Tears were welcome, but getting angry was always disciplined. And so now when I get angry, I find that I often cry, which is interesting. It's like my body's way of trying to compensate. It's like, ooh, you're not allowed to be angry, but tears are okay, so let's just push the tears. Also, I think there's a piece of me that's angry at myself for being angry, and so I cry because I get frustrated that I'm angry. Because I think that anger is bad, but the truth is, anger is not bad. Anger is there for a reason. So just like all of our emotions, we are born with anger. It is a very natural part of who we are, and if we couldn't get angry, it would in fact be a genetic defect. The reason that it's there for survival purposes is so that if something in our environment is not going in a way that we think we are safe, then anger mobilizes us to take charge and change it. It's to protect us. The problem is that our bodies don't realize that we're not living in the wild anymore, and so we get mobilized to protect ourselves in the same way that we would if we were all still nomads, and that's not really appropriate in a civilized world. So it's become a bit of a pickle understanding how we can appropriately express our anger today. Because yelling and screaming at people isn't okay, physical violence, not okay. And a lot of our anger now starts to come out as like gossip and judgment and sarcasm and silent treatment and caretaking and controlling. All still anger. And they are all not okay, which pretty much rules out any way that I have ever seen anger expressed. So what I learned to do, my coping mechanism, was I'm gonna rationalize my anger. I'm just gonna think like, okay, I'm angry right now. I understand why I'm angry. I see the part that I played in this situation that I am angry about. So I'm just gonna take some deep breaths and be calm, and I won't be angry anymore. Great, in a lot of ways. Much better than punching somebody in the face, but I'm still not expressing the anger. Anger is an energy and it rises up in us. Our body actually gives us a physiological response that says something is wrong, do something about it. And we get this like chemical cocktail that all comes up to get us to act. And then if we don't do anything about it, we just say, let's be calm and breathe silently. We still have all of that mobilized stuff inside of us that we need to discharge. And that's when it would leak out in all of these passive-aggressive ways, like a snarky side comment or gossip. I used to love to gossip. I still sometimes like to gossip. But I try not to, because I realize that it is just misplaced anger. So how do we do it? 3 big rules for responsible expression of anger. Number 1, you are not hurting yourself. Number 2, you are not hurting anyone else. Physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And number 3, you have permission from anyone else who may be present or affected to express the anger in your chosen way. So overall, you have to find a safe time, place, and company where you can shift this anger. So it's not like as soon as you're like, oh my gosh, I have anger, you're just gonna unleash it right away. It's like, oh my gosh, I noticed that I'm angry. I need to shift this. And then you take yourself to an appropriate place to do that. And so what exactly can you do? You could scream into a pillow. You could sing along to an angry song. You could scream to tribal music at Rhodes with your trusted friends. You could stomp your feet. You could growl. I knew somebody who said they used to take a pair of their pants and like slam them down on their bed. You could also do that with a pillow. Channel it into some physical activity. A note about that though is that some people will just try to focus on the physical activity to distract themselves as opposed to actually using it as an outlet to say, I'm doing this physical activity and I'm actually thinking about why I'm angry and letting it go as I do what I'm doing. Because if you just go for a run but ignore the anger, it actually makes it worse. It gets it all like hyped up. Those are just a few suggestions, but there are probably many, many more. As long as you are not hurting yourself, anybody else, and if anyone else is in the room, you have permission to do what you're about to do. Comment in the comment section below if you have any other brilliant ideas about how you can safely and responsibly release anger. I will see you next week for the second last